one of the reasons we burn out in our business is because we have systems that are not in place in our business to support us with cash flow, profitability, and all the people problems, the hiring problems, and maintaining team members. And a lot of times we don't even have a clear sweet spot, so we don't have good filters in place to protect the business from difficult clients and customers that are causing problems. You work hard in your business. What has your business done for you lately? Hi, I'm Dr. Sabrina Starling, the business psychologist, the author of the 4-Week Vacation and the How to Hire the Best series, as well as the founder of Tap the Potential, where we coach entrepreneurs like you to design sustainably profitable businesses that give you more time for what matters most and more money in your bank account than ever. We believe work supports life, not the other way around. Weekly on the Profit by Design podcast, our team brings you tips, tools, and strategies to support you in making intentionally profitable and sustainable decisions to live the lifestyle you desire. Today, the topic that I want to take on is wanting to throw in the towel, the feeling of just being at the end of your rope with your business. You're done. And then that one nail in the coffin, that thing that just sends you over the edge happens. And I want to talk about what to do when you're in that situation and how to make the decision, hey, am I really at the end of the road with the business? Am I ready to be done here? Or how to decide if it's worth continuing. And if it is worth continuing, how to turn things around and what that really looks like. So this is an episode that I think is going to be very helpful to you, even if you're not at that place of wanting to throw in the towel right now. At some point, that's just part of being in business. Being in business is tough, and there's hard things that happen, and there's a lot of learning in the first few years in business, but there's also the learning doesn't stop. And this is the thing, is that at every stage of business, we have to grow ourselves. And so we're always, as business owners and entrepreneurs, we're always being stretched. So we're going to get into this today. And I want to encourage you, hang in here till the very end, because at the end, I'm going to share my story of when I wanted to throw in the towel. And it wasn't a short period of time. This was actually several years in the business of struggle. And it was after the business was very well established and had many years of doing pretty well. And I'll share what I learned in that process and how I used the Tap the Potential solution on my business, Tap the Potential, to help us turn things around. And I think what you'll get from that is you will start to understand what are the signs of success to look for to decide if the business is actually turning around, or are you just continuing with the struggle. So I think it's helpful for other business owners. A lot of times we feel like we're alone in our businesses, right? Like we're the only ones and we're so mired in the struggle. It can be really helpful to hear, oh my gosh, I'm not crazy. I'm not screwing things up. A lot of this is common in business at this particular stage. So let's dive in. And as we get into this, I really want to talk about burnout first, because when we get to the point of saying, hey, I want to throw in the towel, it usually is because we have been struggling. We have had struggles in the business for a long time, and we feel like we have to just keep bouncing back and being resilient. And at some point we just feel like, okay, I don't have any more resilience left in me. I'm so tired of all the things that just keep coming at me and the things that fall out and that start going wrong just when I think I have everything right. So 9 out of 10 entrepreneurs are burning out. When we're using the Better Business, Better Life assessment in our program, there's so many entrepreneurs who have been in business for many years and who are, when they're taking the assessment, what we're seeing is that there are higher scores on the assessment. And so burnout doesn't just happen overnight. It starts to build up over time. And this is why at Tap the Potential, we're so passionate about supporting entrepreneurs in taking your lives back from your business, because if we don't get in front of burnout, it just continues to build, and you will get to that point where you snap and you make a rash decision. And part of what I hope will be helpful to you today is that you don't make any rash decisions. if you get to that place of I'm done, and then you start calling business brokers or people who might be potentially interested in buying your business, you're in the survival trap. When you're having those discussions, you're in crisis mindset and you're not going to portray the value of your business. You're not protecting your best interests when you do that. So the first thing I could say to you is if you're ready to throw in the towel, stop, pause, give yourself 30 days to really think through and diagnose the problem and make a decision as to whether or not you want to deal with it. And if you don't, during that 30-day period, you can be working, and we can support you in working on setting the business up so that it becomes, you can get the best value of it from a sale. And a lot of times, if you just jump in there and say, I'm going to sell the business, you're doing it at a point where, if you would have done it maybe 5 months ago, you would have gotten more value. Or if you wait 5 months and you work on improving some things, you'll get more value. So don't make rash decisions. And when we're in a place of crisis, we should never make rash decisions. So give yourself 30 days. And going back to the burnout piece, one of the reasons we burn out in our business is because we have systems that are not in place in our business to support us with cash flow, profitability, and all the people problems, the hiring problems, and maintaining team members. And a lot of times we don't even have a clear sweet spot, so we don't have good filters in place to protect the business from difficult clients and customers that are causing problems. So what I like about our Better Business, Better Life assessment, and why I would encourage you to take it right now, if you're feeling like I want to throw in the towel, you should really be taking our Better Business, Better Life assessment, because number one, you're going to get a score to see where you are in burnout. And if your scores are high, that means stop and pause. You're making a decision and it's coming out of crisis. But the other thing that you're going to learn is which systems in your business are not fully in place that are contributing to the burnout and setting you up to be vulnerable to the problems that you're experiencing. And that's it, where we have to take ownership as leaders in our businesses, is that if we are allowing vulnerabilities to continue to exist in our businesses, it just means that we're going to have, and if we have multiple areas where we have vulnerabilities, we could be setting ourselves up to have multiple problems stacking up on each other, which gets us to that place of, I want to throw in the towel. So the first place of taking ownership of this is diagnosing the problem. And that's what the Better Business, Better Life assessment will support you with. So you can take the assessment. There's no charge to take the assessment. You can take it at tapthepotential.com/assessment. When you take it, you'll have the opportunity to meet with our success team lead, Caitlin Beaver, and she will review your assessment results with you. She will take you through a profit audit in your business. And she will, in that profit audit, will show you, that will help you start to diagnose the problem, right? If it's a profit problem, a lot of times it is a profit problem, but it's not, if it's a profit problem, we need to know what's underneath the profit problem, right? So that's what the assessment will help with. And then Caitlin will be able to say to you, here's the top one or two $10,000 an hour activities that if you focus here, this is going to have the greatest impact for you in improving the profitability of the business and improving your quality of life. That's where the Better Business, Better Life assessment is unique, is we're the only assessment that looks at your level of burnout in relation to the health of the systems in your business. And we can tell you, hey, you're personally suffering because you're not putting attention on a couple of these systems in your business. And then we can support you with that. So let's talk now about diagnosing the problem. So I was in an online forum a couple of weeks ago, and a business owner said, I want to throw in the towel. And she went on to share how the business has just not, she's barely able to pay herself month after month. She's putting a lot of time into the business, and she's been in business a few years, but she's just wondering, like, is this even worth it to continue, or should I just pull the plug right now? And what I thought was really interesting about the responses from other business owners is there were several who just jumped in and immediately started giving ideas for how to improve sales. Like there was an assumption it's a sales problem. I think that's where we can really get messed up in our business by not stopping to really diagnose what's going on. And when we're in the midst of the survival trap and we're in crisis thinking, we are not in the best place to evaluate what the real underlying problem is in the business. A lot of times we will focus on the surface level problem. Oh, it's cash flow, so I need to make more sales. But that's a Band-Aid. That's not fixing the deeper issue. And so one of the things that I shared in this forum is it could either be a cash flow problem or it could be a sales problem. And I think one of the things to use to just start to diagnose for yourself is that a sales problem is to look at, well, have sales gone up steadily in recent months and you're still struggling to pay yourself, which is very common in a growing business because as the business grows, expenses will grow, especially as you start hiring team members to support you with the growth. But 9 times out of 10, it's not a sales problem, especially in an established business. If you're in an established business, you are established because you figured out your sales, right? So one of the things that can happen though in an established business is there can be a shift in your market because trends and things happen over periods of time. So for those of us who've been in business, like Tap the Potential has been around for 18 years, if we were still using our strategies for sales from 17 years ago, I think we'd be really struggling. There have been a lot of shifts in the marketplace. And so continually staying in touch with understanding the needs of your top clients and how they experience what you're doing is valuable to them will make sure that you're staying relevant. So if you have seen, if your sales were steadily going up and then all of a sudden they've plateaued and they're just kind of flat, a lot of times that means that you are not tuned in to the needs of your top clients and aligning your service or your product as a solution to their most urgent needs and problems. And so that piece of alignment, and now I'm talking about the sweet spot of your business, and this is step 2 in the Tap the Potential solution, where you want to niche down with a clearly defined sweet spot. So one of the things that we do at Tap the Potential with our clients, and we do it ourselves, is we encourage that at least every year to every 18 months to 2 years, but no more than every 2 years, you want to be identifying who are your top clients, the top 20% who are driving 80% of the revenue, and using our interview process that we teach you to understand their greatest needs and how they experience the value that you're delivering. And you want to continually adjust your marketing messaging around those interviews. So this process is highly valuable because it ensures that your business stays relevant and in the market for serving your top clients. So if you have an established business and you have a sales problem or you think sales have plateaued, that would be the first place to look. But if your sales have been steady and they're going up over time and you still are struggling to pay yourself, then you have a profitability problem. And that means that your expenses are exceeding the revenue that's coming in every month. And this is in seasonal businesses, this is really hard because there will be months where you are flush with cash. And then other months where hardly anything comes in. And so it can be really hard to run the business in that way. So one of the things we do with our clients using the Profit First system, we help seasonal businesses establish what's called a drip system, which helps set aside a certain amount of cash during the busy season so that you can get through those slower times and it really levels out the cash flow. But if you're not in a seasonal business and things are generally fairly predictable and you still have a cash flow problem and sales are pretty steady or going up, then what you really are looking at is a profit problem, and it comes down to efficiency in the business. So a lot of people will read Profit First and they'll say, I need to cut expenses. But you can't just cut willy-nilly because sometimes you're cutting into the muscle of the business, right? You're not just cutting the fat, you're cutting into the muscle of the business. And so sometimes you can only cut so far. And this is where there's more subtlety to expense cutting. And it's really about how you run the business more efficiently. And that's where the Tap the Potential solution is so unique and so valuable because we're not just looking at, let's reduce your insurance expenses and your office rent. That's surface level. And we do start there because those are easy cuts sometimes. But then we start looking at how efficient is your payroll? And do you have team members who are more or less warm bodies and you're really only getting about 2 full days of work out of them in a given week, but yet you're paying them for the full week? And they're also making a lot of mistakes. There's rework. So that's where you can have a lot of inefficiency on the payroll. And this is where having coaching can be so helpful because it can be hard to let go of team members. And it can feel really daunting because it can feel like, well, who's going to do the work if I let it go? Well, when you have coaching support, we can help you figure that out. Like, how do these things get done in the business? And usually if you have some A players in the business, they will say, you know what, we'll step up. We're going to help you get through this. And time again, I've seen that work. So you have to look at the profit side of things from looking at how can we make things more efficient. But this is also where the sweet spot comes into play, because it's very possible you could be offering services that don't directly support the sweet spot of the business, and there's expenses there that are involved in the business. Or you could have a number of clients who are PITA clients, the pain in the assets clients, and you're continuing to allow them to be served by the business, but meanwhile, they're actually costing you more to serve them than you're making. And so this is where you don't want to just say, oh, we're going to cut expenses. There's a lot of ways that cash can leak out of the business. And we want to look at how do we make the business as efficient as possible. One of the things that we're doing on our team is a time audit every quarter. And our team members are tracking what they're doing in 15-minute increments and over a course of a week. And then they're taking that into their one-to-ones with their supervisor who's looking at that. And we're identifying, are you spending time, number one, on activities that are no longer relevant to our sweet spot? Because that's the worst thing that can happen, right? Is you have a long-term employee who has been doing something for years and no one's ever questioned it. And all of a sudden, when you do a time audit, you realize has nothing to do with anything anymore. And that's something that could be stopped. It's not necessary. It's not contributing value. So we're always looking at how can we get our team members focused on the higher value activities using the chart of the $10,000 an hour activities. So, and you can get your chart of $10,000 an hour activities at tapthepotential.com/10K. But what we're looking at is, can we take some things off your plate that are not contributing value? And maybe they're $10 an hour activities, but maybe it's, could be $100 an hour activity, but for whatever reason, we're not getting results doing it. So we actually found something where a team member was spending about 90 minutes a week on an activity and she's been tracking the results. There's no results from it. So we're stopping that. We're just like that. We're not going to do this. It works for other businesses, but it's, for whatever reason, not working for us. So we're not going to continue. But we also made sure that we've given it a good, honest effort. Because that's the other thing is, when you're in a place of survival, you start like trying to do this and trying to do that and trying this or that. And you don't do anything long enough or with enough strategy and consistency to see results. So this is something that we had done for about 9 months, and we had tracked the results, and we said, yeah, we've given it an honest try. We've done our best, not working. We're going to stop doing that. But the other thing that we found in the time audit is there's some ways that we can use automation, and it will not only impact one team member, it's actually going to impact the activities of at least 2, maybe 3 team members. And so it will reduce the time that they have to spend on this particular task. So that's an example of how you just want to have this eye of ongoing efficiency in your business. And that's where the Tap the Potential solution can be so helpful to you. So the other piece, so you can have a cash flow problem, which can break down into a sales problem, profit problem. The other problem that may be in there is a people problem. So maybe you have team members who are they may be steady eddies, like you can count on them, they're reliable, but they're not getting you where you need to go. And that might be where you're plateauing, and where you can quickly go from being in a place of plateau to cash flow problem is because they're not ready to move to the next level, or they don't have the skill set or mindset to move with the business to the next level. But also, if you have people on your team who resist coaching, and there's the outright people who just don't utilize the one-to-one coaching in the one-to-ones that you offer them. But there's also the people who are more passive about it. Like they say, yeah, I'll do that. I'll work on that. But nothing ever really changes. Like they continue the same old behaviors. That's a more subtle people problem. And you need to address that, because what'll happen is you as the leader will start going down this slippery slope of self-doubt. You may have team members who challenge your authority as the leader. They challenge your decisions and talk bad about you to other team members. Any people problems that we allow to go on for an extended period of time in our business, meaning more than a week or so, you are setting yourself up. You're making yourself very vulnerable to a massive crisis. So the worst thing that can happen is to have a people problem issue and to just say, I don't want to deal with this right now because we're in our busy season. I'll deal with it when we get past our busy season. Well, you know what is most likely to happen? In the midst of the busy season, that person is going to quit. And now what are you going to do, right? That is the worst. And so be proactive and address these people problems. And if you're in coaching, especially those of you who are in coaching with us at Tap the Potential, you want to be bringing this up to your coaches and talking about it in your small group so that we can help you make solid decisions and not allow problems to fester. Because it's the festering people problems that make us incredibly vulnerable to having a crisis somewhere else in the business. So maybe we're dealing with something where we've had a major client who stops paying their bills, and we're trying to address that issue. And then all of a sudden that festering people problem comes to a head and you have an employee who quits and walks out abruptly, and they have key information that you need to solve the other problem or to deal with other things in the business. So we don't want to allow those situations to fester. But the other thing about letting people problems fester in the business is we can really go down that slippery slope of self-doubt about ourselves as leaders. And this is where it's so important to have the support of a solid business strategist and a coach, as well as a peer group of other entrepreneurs who are at a similar stage in business with you, because they will be able to reflect to you their own experiences and also be able to point out to you where some of your blind spots might be and how you're dealing with this. And I think in our group, some of the best things, the most valuable things that come out is when another group member gives you the language of here's how you say this to that person, or here's how I would say it in that situation. And, or sometimes I'll give the client the language, and it's all of a sudden like, oh, this is this moment of clarity. I can see how to deal with it. So you don't allow those people problems to continue. But the other part in terms of diagnosing what's creating this problem in the business where you just feel like I want to throw in the towel, the other thing that you really need to look at are all the systems in the business, the key systems. And I will tell you in our research with entrepreneurs, some of the biggest missing systems have the greatest impact on our mindset and how we're able to cope as business owners. So 9 out of 10 business owners do not have a system in place for consistently attracting A players to the business. So hiring is very willy-nilly. And every time you mishire, you are putting yourself at risk for going down that slippery slope of self-doubt in your leadership. Most business owners who have no system in place or who follow traditional hiring systems, which is where you have a need to hire, you create a quick job ad, you interview, you select the best from the people who interview. If you follow that approach, you're going to mishire probably about 75% of the time. And so with How to Hire the Best, we're teaching our business owners a way to hire and build that hiring system so that your chances of hiring right go from 25% each time you're hiring up to 35%, 45%, on up to 75 to 90%, because we show you a process for honing and improving your system every time you go through the hiring process. So you want to make sure that you have a solid hiring system in place, because when you know that you can hire A players and you have confidence in that, it's much easier to fire ineffective employees. But that's also a part of building a stronger culture and helping you to retain team members. Because if you don't retain your A players, then you have a lot of cash flow problems that can come up due to high turnover in the business, because that becomes so costly to the business. So those are a couple of key systems, but there can also be systems in place around the delivery of services to your top clients. That's a system that needs a lot of attention and making sure that that is very strong. If that system isn't strong, you may lose business. Like people may sign up for your service or your product, but if you're not strong in how that service is being delivered, then you will lose money out the back end. So those are a couple of systems just right off the top that I can point to and say, put attention here. This is going to create great impact for you in the business. But there's also systems around how you establish a contract with your client or agreements, and how you collect cash, what you do when people don't pay, what are your terms, like how long do you allow people to have an unpaid invoice. all of that comes together. So it's not just a matter of saying, oh my gosh, I'm tired of the cash flow problems in my business. I want to throw in the towel. We really have to get in there and look at what are the systems that are contributing to the problem. And that's where I really encourage you, yet again, take our Better Business, Better Life assessment, because then we can help you diagnose which systems will have the greatest impact in making things go easier for you and making the business more profitable. The other consideration here is looking at short-term versus long-term. So it's very possible to be in a place where things have been going well for a number of years in the business, or a couple of years even. And then all of a sudden you lose a couple of key team members and it's like, oh my gosh, now suddenly everything has fallen apart. And that I would consider to be a short-term problem. So yes, you may be tempted to throw in the towel, but you kind of have to look back over the history and say, wow, we've been doing really well for, a long period of time, or we've made some massive shifts here in the last year and things are going pretty good. This sucks to be in this place right now, but it's not something that we can't fix. Maybe, and to really ask yourself, okay, if we put some dedicated effort here over the next few months, where might we be with this situation 6 months from now? And so you have to kind of move yourself out of like the immediate right now just really stinks really bad, to looking at, okay, if we put attention, where will we be in 6 months? And will that be better? Or do we see that it's just going to keep getting worse? Usually, if you put attention on something, what you're going to do is you're going to strengthen something that was weak in the business. And 6 months from now, you're going to be in a much stronger place. And when I share my story in a minute, I think you're really going to see how that has come to play with Tap the Potential. So the long term, if you have been trying to deal with things in the business and there have been cash flow problems and they've gone on for years, now you're really in a place of burnout, and it becomes harder to address the problems because when you're burning out, you have less mental energy and emotional energy to put towards addressing the problem. And your creativity and problem solving, your access to that part of your brain starts to decrease. And that's why we don't want to allow burnout to go on for an extended period of time. You want to get in there and intervene and start to turn that around, which is what we do with our clients in the Better Business, Better Life program. So if it's a long-term problem and you're recognizing that your capacity, like your personal capacity to keep moving forward is completely diminished, it's a very viable option to look at, okay, I need to wrap this up. This is no longer sustainable. It's taken too much of a toll on me. It's taken too much of a toll on my family. I need to look at some other ways. And we've definitely had clients come to us at Tap the Potential and utilize the Tap the Potential solution, made things better in the business, and then ultimately decided, you know what? I still don't want to continue. Even though things are better, my capacity is, I'm done. But the cool thing about that is you've improved the business. You've spent a year or so improving the business, and it's gotten to a place where there's a lot more value for the business when it is sold versus selling it when you're in that place of, I'm just ready to throw in the towel. So that's why I say, give yourself that 30 days to just really think through, okay, if I put some dedicated effort here, where can things be in 6 months' time? And if I have that coaching and I have that support and I utilize the coaching, that's the other thing, is just because you sign up for a program doesn't mean you fully utilize it or follow what the direction that's being given in the program. So you really have to do that check with yourself. Like, am I coachable? Am I willing to address these blind spots that I have that allow these problems to continue to exist in the business? If your answer to that is yes, and you can say, okay, if I put some dedicated effort here with coaching, I can see that in 6 months, this will be better in my business and it'll make my business stronger overall. Long term, I'm willing to do that. That allows you to make a different decision at that point. So I really encourage you, if you're in that place of, I want to throw in the towel, make sure you're bringing that up in coaching, share it with your small group. And if you're not in coaching, consider joining a program like ours, like the Better Business, Better Life program, where you get coaching from the business strategists and from your peers who are in that same place. And they can really help you feel like you're not alone. This is not a you problem. This is actually a problem that has to do with the stage of business that you're in. There are solutions, and people can share. That sharing about, hey, I've been where you are, I totally get it. There is something that is so healing in that when we are in that place of crisis. So the other thing that happens in coaching that I think is so important, in our program, we put a lot of emphasis on what are your wins and successes? And we ask that at the start of every coaching group. And the reason we do that is because business owners and entrepreneurs, I think, are more wired than the general population to see problems. Like, we will notice what's wrong in any situation. And because we're fixers, we want to fix things. We want to create solutions to address what's wrong. And so when we are looking in our businesses, we're going to be focusing on what all are the things that are wrong in the business. And in the Better Business, Better Life program, the reason we focus so much on wins and successes is because that shifts our mindset. And it helps us to start tuning into, well, what are the wins? What are the early signs of success that show that, hey, this plan that I have to address the set of problems that I have in my business, I am working the plan and I can see some early signs of success. And it's those early signs of success you have to identify when you start to develop a new plan for how you're going to address a problem in the business. You want to identify what are those early signs of success that I need to be paying attention to, and calling those out for yourself every week. So that's why we ask on an ongoing basis, what are your wins and successes? But the other reason that it's so valuable to focus on your wins and successes is your overall mindset in the business. And, we did the strategic planning series on the podcast. At the end of every year, we ask you to reflect back on the previous year and how is the business better and how is it stronger? Because a lot of times when we're in the day-to-day of trying to improve things, it can feel like we are wading through molasses. Like, change is so slow and so hard, and there's one step forward and 3 steps back. And when we look back, we can say, wow, my business is much better and much stronger than it was a year ago because I've taken these small steps forward. So you really want to be paying attention to those wins and successes. And wins and successes often point us to $10,000 an hour activity that we can be doing in our business that makes everything else easier or unnecessary. So that's the other value of talking about your wins and successes in a group setting with a coach, because we're tuning into how can we help you leverage that win so that you have more wins and it makes other things in the business easier or unnecessary. So I want to share with you now where I was and what was going on when I was ready to throw in the towel. And this started in 2019, at the very end of 2019, but it progressed for, I think, probably 3 years, where it was just really tenuous. Like, are we going to keep Tap the Potential open? Is this viable? I don't know at this point. And so Tap the Potential has been around for going on 18 years now. And it's grown steadily year over year, usually about a 30% revenue growth. Some years a little more, some years a little less. In 2019, around the middle of 2019, I was noticing that our referral sources, we had 2 key referral sources, and they were starting to dry up. And we were getting fewer and fewer referrals from these sources. And that was concerning to me. And so I was starting to look at how could we be better at generating our own leads and being less reliant on these 2 referral sources. And so I had already started to make some inroads, but those inroads were really around marketing support and marketing training for our team and some coaching in that area. So there was a lot of money that was going in that direction in the business, but that was okay because we were in a cash flow position. Our sales were going up. We'd had some really strong revenue months, and we were on an upward trend. And I just was like, okay, we're going to invest in some marketing support and we're going to push this trend forward. Well, everyone knows what happened to March 2020. That's where, everything just fell apart. And we lost close to $100,000 of booked revenue in a 4-week period of time. It was so like, whoa. So that was where our clients who were business owners, all of a sudden were in a very different cash position themselves and were having to make decisions. And so we had people who had committed, they were going to do these things and have their team go through these programs with us. And all of a sudden, that's gone. And so I was looking at our cash flow and I thought, oh my gosh. And where I made the mistake, and this was the big learning for me, is I kept thinking this COVID thing, that's not going to go on this long. This might be 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, but I think in 6 months, things are going to start to settle down and this is going to kind of even out. And I had no way of knowing it was going to go as long as it did. And none of us did, right? This was a huge learning for all of us. So I did not cut expenses fast enough. I cut some expenses, but I needed to cut more deeply. And I did not do that because I really wanted to keep our team together. That was very important to me. But here's the other thing that I think where I wasn't paying enough attention. All of our team members said, we're all in. Like we're going to get through this. We're going to muddle through. We're going to pull together. But the ones there were some that were all in and ready to pivot. And there were some who were all in, but do I really have to, we're pivoting? Like we're going to do things differently and we're going to do things at a higher level. And so those team members that didn't go through the pivot fully and wholeheartedly became heavy weight on the business, essentially. And I felt like, oh my gosh, I'm pulling a boulder up the hill. And I should have taken faster action on that. But I was in a place, and this is what I just talked about here, of feeling like, oh, if I let these people go, then I have to jump in and I have to do this, but I'm already over here and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And I don't think I have the capacity. And when I look back on all of that, I realized what I needed to do is reduce payroll significantly and really do an honest evaluation of who's all in with the pivot that we're having to do here and be much more clear with here's what's expected from you. This is the level of performance that is absolutely a must. It's non-negotiable. If you're not willing to perform at this level, let's part ways because then I need to figure something else out. So that was my learning. I would have done that a lot more quickly. So what the fallout of all of that is I went through a period of about 2.5 years of really struggling to stay afloat and keep the business going and serving our clients and paying myself appropriately or even minimally. There were some months where I'm like, I don't think I can pay myself this month. And that was an awful feeling. And so what did I do? So number one, I was in coaching throughout this entire time. And that it's hard when you're in that place where cash flow is so tight. It's hard to invest in coaching, right? Because you feel like that's a significant financial commitment and we're already struggling with cash flow. Do I really want to do this? I decided I'm all in. I'm going to get coaching. I know that I'm the greatest investment. I've always signed up for coaching and gotten returns on investment out of it. So I had high confidence in myself around that. So I was utilizing coaching. The other thing that I did is I kept the obstacle is the way by my bedside. And I would read a chapter of that every night. And that was so that I would go to bed with a mindset that would support resilience. And no matter how hard the day was, I had this sense of, okay, I can get up tomorrow and I'm going to keep moving forward and it's going to be better. And I used the Tap the Potential solution and I became an efficiency. Like I was looking all over the place for where are we inefficient? Where are we spending money that we don't need to be spending? And where can we tighten things up or cut something that's not serving the sweet spot? So that really helped. And that's the early signs of success because there was a period of time in there where our revenue was not going up because of COVID and economic conditions. But I could see early signs of success that I was cutting our expenses. And you know, the coolest thing was after a year of being into this, I could see where our expenses were significantly less than the previous year. And that to me was like, wow, okay, I know we can do this. Even though cash flow was still really tight, because I had seen what we had done with our expenses, I'm like, okay, we can do this. We're going to pull through all this. So we had to pivot. We had to pivot with our marketing and how we are attracting clients. And that takes some learning. There was a learning curve for everyone on the team. And I knew that going in. I knew that what we were doing was not going to be an overnight, like this is going to get more sales coming in. I knew that it was probably going to take, at least 18 months because we're learning new skills and we're building our muscles with these new skills. And so I started looking for early signs of success in that direction. And one of the things that I thought was so interesting is we weren't exactly getting the results that others in this particular coaching program we were in were getting, but our revenue was still going up because we were finding that we were attracting our top clients through what we were doing, but they were signing up in a different way than what we were expecting them to do. And that was okay. So we just had to adjust our expectations because we saw the sales coming in, but they weren't coming in quite the way we would have thought they would have. So that's really, again, where you've got to say, okay, the plan is working a little differently than we expected it to. And that was because I was really confident in our knowledge of our top clients and their needs because we were using the Tap the Potential solution and continually honing and refining our sweet spot. And when I look back on all of that, I think there's two key pieces in the Tap the Potential solution that helped us not just survive, but start to thrive out of all of this. And that was having the Profit First system in place and using Profit First. And it was how grounded we are in our sweet spot and understanding our top clients and their needs and how we're serving those needs. And so we started focusing on strengthening the delivery of our services and paying attention to what our top clients were saying they valued most. And so when we were looking at our system for delivery and what could be strengthened, we put emphasis on those aspects. So we didn't look at all the weaknesses. We really looked at what are our clients valuing most and how can we strengthen those? And then we looked at, well, where are we weak and what can we do? But we didn't put the most attention went to where are we already strong, but then we just kind of bolstered some areas where we were a little weak and needed more attention. And that really started to turn things around because then our client satisfaction, happiness, the Net Promoter Score started going up. And we came out of that period, just to give you a sense of how impactful that was. We came out of that period and there was a period of time where we had a Net Promoter Score of 100 from our clients because we were nailing things with them. And that place of perfection, that's an unrealistic expectation to stay there. Our Net Promoter Scores are still very, very high. They're in the 80s, 70s, and 80s. But I look back at that and I'm like, wow, we nailed it. And that was because of the struggle that we had gone through. So that was a long period of time. And what I want you to really hear and understand and hopefully take for yourself out of this is that it wasn't this steady upward trajectory like, oh, a win here and a win here. And now everything is happy and great over this 3-year period. No, it would be a step forward, 2 steps back. Step forward, 2 steps back. Something else would fall out. And that's the nature of being in business. So I looked at that and I really worked on my mindset and I thought, okay, Sabrina, what would you tell a client about this? And I would say, well, that's kind of the nature of where the business is in its stage of development. This is kind of a normal thing. And that allowed me permission not to beat up on myself as a leader. I certainly did plenty of that, but I had to stop doing it because if I beat myself up as the leader, then I would start beating up on the team. And that's not a healthy place to be. None of us are going to get the business moving in the direction we want it to be moving in if we're in that negative mindset. And so I was paying attention to, do I have a plan? Do I trust the plan? Are we having some early signs of success, even though we're having setbacks? Do I have a plan to address those setbacks? And yes, I did. And so that's how I decided this is worth it. We're going to keep going. And I can look back now, it's 2024. I can look back on where we were at the end of 2019 and I can say, holy moly, we are so much stronger than we were back then. And those areas that needed attention in the business were areas of vulnerability. And we strengthened because we were suffering and feeling the pain of those vulnerabilities. We got in there and we strengthened systems. And we are so much stronger now than we were back then. And the learning for me has been that I needed support, I needed coaching, I needed to use the Tap the Potential solution, and I needed to pay attention to what issues did I allow to linger too long in the business that created more and more vulnerability as we went through a particularly difficult time. And so I have a lot of empathy for you when you say, I want to throw in the towel. I've been there. I know what that feels like. And we've supported business owners who have been there and who've gotten past that situation, but we've also had some that have decided, I am throwing in the towel. I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. Being in business is tough. I'm going to pivot. And I think it's very important to give yourself that permission to say, yeah, that's a viable option to just stop being in business, to throw in the towel. And then at that point, to not just stop and close the doors, but to really look at what is the value that I have here and how can I make it more valuable and position the business as quickly as possible for a sale so that I can walk away knowing that I gave it my best effort and I extracted as much value as I could out of that situation. And now I get to look at what's next and how do I want to create my life going forward from that. So I hope that what I've gone over today with you has been very valuable. I really wanted to give you a framework for making a decision if you're ready to throw in the towel, for really looking at, okay, am I throwing in the towel or am I not? And is this worth trying to stick with it and make it better? I encourage you, if you're in that place of I want to throw in the towel, book a call with us at Tap the Potential and let us support you in making that decision. Don't make that decision on your own, and really take the Better Business, Better Life assessment and allow yourself to see what are the areas of vulnerability in the business that if you put some attention there would make your life better and help you to get into a place of thriving. So if you want to book a call with us, just head on over to tapthepotential.com. And if you want to take the assessment, go to tapthepotential.com/assessment. Bye for now. Thank you for tuning in today. Join our team and your fellow entrepreneurs in our Tap the Potential Mighty Networks community at tapthepotential.com/group. Share your aha moments from today's episode. Ask us questions and join in on the fun. Finally, share today's episode with a friend if you know a friend who would enjoy it. Profit by Design is in the top 5% of podcasts globally because listeners like you share with friends. Thank you. This is real life business. Keep your chin up, keep moving forward. You got this.